Hi, everybody. Welcome to Busy Living Sober. Busy Living Sober. Busy Living Sober. With Illtone today on episode 20. Oh my gosh, am I on 203? Oh my gosh, 203, I think. Oh my gosh.
203.
Yeah.
Wow. That's a lot of episodes.
It's so much. I can't believe it. It's so much. It's crazy, crazy. I never thought I would have this right now, Ill. It's I'm calling you Ill like it's your first name. I know it's not your God-given. I mean, it wasn't what your parents named you, was Illtone, right?
It's all good. You can call me whatever you want. I was born Chris. My last name is Hamilton, but the stage name Illtone developed over the years. So I actually used to have a way worse stage name. But since my last name is Hamilton, one of my close friends who I used to rhyme with actually just started saying Hamilton, and then we chopped the ham and just went with the Illtone. So today I rhyme by the name of Illtone, and that's how that came to be.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. I like that. We love to always hear how everybody comes up with their names. It's like Busy. I came up with Busy. My brother came up with it, actually. He could never pronounce Elizabeth. So that's how it became Busy and then Busy Living Sober. But enough about me, and tell us about you. Big changes happened in your life about May of 2018, 2019?
Absolutely. So unfortunately, the story of my addiction came to a close by me getting arrested for some things that the police perceived me to have done in May of last year, and I wound up in jail. And I every part of me wanted to go back out and do the same things I was doing prior to my arrest. I was scheming on a way to get into a recovery house where I would have some freedom to go out and use. And I just wasn't going to make the changes that I needed to make in order to be successful in my life. And it came to me just suddenly that my parents and my family and my lawyer and all these people were sticking their neck out for me. My mother was signing on as my surety for, to get me out on bail. My father was paying my legal fees. My lawyer was, very attentive and helpful. And it dawned on me, how am I going to put these people through another relapse? That's that addict mind going, spinning around on the next, stint of absurd behavior. And I just decided that I couldn't do it again. And so I know that we have to, in the end, work on a recovery for ourselves. But it had to be other people who I was doing it for at first until I decided that, this was a better life. When I was in my early days, my first 30 days of recovery, sobriety, it had to be for other people, the people that were helping me get out of jail. So that's why I'm out right now, and that's why I'm clean, is because once I did start living that recovery life, I did realize that it was much, much better than being out in the streets and doing things that I shouldn't have been doing.
But it's interesting because prior to this time, had you tried to get sober before?
I have been through treatment a few times. So this current time, I've got about 17 months under my belt right now. But I was released on bail. Thank you very much. I was released on bail to a treatment facility here in Nanaimo, British Columbia, on Vancouver Island, where I am right now. But previously, I had gone to another 12 or non-12 step treatment facility in Powell River, which is a small town relatively close to where I'm at right now. But this was in my mid-20s. I'm now in my mid-30s. And in my mid-20s, I tried to clean up. But I was so opposed to the idea of spirituality or the word God, which I am not today. I would like to mention that, but that I sought a non-12 step based recovery program. And so what happened is, when I got out, I mean, the programming was good. I went in, there were, physical education, things like that to get us healthy, eating better, maybe some low-level spiritual aspects to it as well. But when I got out, there was no aftercare, there was no recovery. And so I didn't partake in 12-step fellowship meetings. I didn't get a sponsor. I was still somewhat bigoted towards spiritual principles. The word God still scared the crap out of me. And I didn't develop, a network of positive people that I could call for help, reach out to, and in turn give myself back to the community to help them either. I just tried to go at it for myself. I remained abstinent from substances for 2.5 years, but the whole time I was just white knuckling it. I wasn't actually out there living. I was just existing.
And so your adversity to a spiritual life, as we like to call it, higher power. When you picked, how old were you when you first used?
So I was about 13 the first time. It started with marijuana and alcohol at about that age, and right away I recognized the powerlessness. I was the first one to start using, the last one to put my substances down, and the one feeling the worst the next day, but the one most eager to get back at it. And so right there, that's the admission of powerlessness. I was always able to recognize that, but my situation was not unmanageable yet. So I was in school. I had a family whose home I lived in. Both parents were still around. I grew up with a older sister as well. I had friends. Later on in my teenage years, I always held down a job. And as long as I had those things, I couldn't recognize the unmanageability, right? Because it never dawned on me that when I was waking up and doing damage control every morning on the night before, or at least in the early days, every Saturday and Sunday on the weekend when I wasn't in school, losing friends, saying things that I shouldn't have been saying, that to me wasn't enough. That wasn't unmanageable enough for me to get it through my head that I needed to stop doing it. I just thought it would be a phase, right? Like I go through my teenage years, and eventually I just grow up and be able to use responsibly. But it never happened. And going back to the lack of spiritual principles in my life, I did grow up in an atheist home. My parents were not bigoted towards religion in any way, but I never grew up with it. And today I identify as being an agnostic. But how it worked for me is like I fought getting into the program for years and years, and I would be able to look in on a 12-step fellowship meeting, and it didn't matter that the people were happy and smiling, and they had friends, and they had careers, and they had saved themselves through the program of Narcotics Anonymous or Alcoholics Anonymous or whichever anonymous it was. It didn't matter that they were happy and had saved themselves. I would look in and think, huh, my way's better, right? I would just absolutely scoff at it. But how can I scoff at something that seems to be working for them when, in contrast, my life is jail, misery, and just general unhappiness. But still, that's how willful I was. I was just living it my own way and not taking any instruction from anybody else. And so I thought, maybe there is something to these spiritual principles, right? And so once I started opening my mind and going to these meetings and linking in with the community here, specifically in Nanaimo in this last stint of recovery, I realized, the 12-step fellowship and the power of human connectivity itself is my higher power to this day. And I also, I think about the Big Bang theory, and I always think like if it's just a swirling mass of heat and chemicals that was created out of nothingness, well, what's nothingness and who put them there? So to this day, and these days, I am a little bit more open to everybody else's spirituality. It doesn't matter, the God of his or her own understanding to my left or right. It doesn't matter what it is. We're all there working for a common purpose of helping each other stay clean and sober.
It's that, what I keep hearing? Willingness, right?
Yeah.
That whole willingness. You're like, they're all happy over there. I don't know why they are, but I kind of want a little bit of that. It looks kind of nice, doesn't it?
Totally. Yeah. It's just like we have to go to any and all lengths in order to stay clean and sober. And I just wasn't willing to do it at first. I thought, I would go to that treatment facility that I went to in my mid-20s. I thought that I would go for a month or two, and I would get off the substances. I would detox, and then I'd go back out there and live every other aspect of my life the exact same way. There was no inclination for me to get into meetings or make new friends who lived in a different way. And being a hip hop artist, that common way that I was living included being in bars and nightclubs, a couple nights a week. And so not only was I not linking in with the recovery community, I was still going into bars and nightclubs like, at least once a week, just white knuckling it through the turmoil, which is a nightclub, right? And so I actually have a song about that. It's called Clubs and Drugs. That's about trying to remain abstinent from substances while performing in bars and nightclubs. So I have touched on that in my music a little bit. But, sooner or later, if we're at an Italian restaurant, we're going to eat Italian food. And without that solid foundation of recovery outside of that whole network of, which is my music network, it was only a matter of time before it got me too. And so this time around, I've gotten out and have gotten back to making music, and I do perform in bars and nightclubs and things like that. I mean, as much as I can with the restrictions in place right now. But when I leave, I know that I have my recovery community to go back to the next day, and that accountability is a big reminder of why I'm still trying to remain abstinent from substances.
Well, it's hard because if you think about it, it's like sex, booze, and rock and roll, right? Sex, drugs, and rock and roll, right? They all it's like it all comes together. But it's interesting because there's a lot of people that are that you're creative, right? You're an artist. So people think artist and it just associated with drugs and alcohol, right? Or weed or whatever it is. And getting to that place where you're still able to be creative, but knowing you can walk into these places where you need to perform, because that's where people go to listen to you, right? You aren't going to go, you're not going to get people to go meet you in a park I guess they would, but you know what I mean? It's like the place where you go is a club, right? Get people dancing.
Well, for the record, I've done some pretty good shows in parks, more so in the early days, but that might be what I have to go back to right now if they tighten the restrictions anymore, but we'll cover that in the future. I'll take it as it comes. But yeah, I mean, it's a myth that we need substances to create, or at least it is for me, and I would hope that that's how it is for other people. But I used to think the same thing. Writing came with a joint, or making a beat came with a beer in front of me. Like, eventually, though, I was drinking or smoking so much that I couldn't create anything anyway. And it's been a stark realization coming out into the recovery community. I'm actually more inspired to create now than I was before when I was using those substances that I used as a crutch to create, right? So how's that for a paradigm? It's just, it wasn't what I needed. What I needed was actually a clear mind and a positive attitude, which didn't come with using substances. So I used to say the same thing. I used to say that I wouldn't be able to create without my marijuana or my alcohol or cocaine or whatever it was. And it was a myth. Now that I've started creating with a mindset of recovery, it's just more positive. My genuine personality is coming out in my songs a little bit more. The last record that I released is largely recovery based because I wrote it partially while I was clean the last time I tried to clean up, and partially while I was in the grips of my disease after having relapsed. And so it is largely recovery based, but yeah, this one's a lot different just because I have written it with a clear mind and, with a solid network of people in recovery.
And I wondered, is it fear, like when you're going to go and, I mean, think like for me, at least sometimes I go and I even listen to my podcast. I'm like, it's your ego kind of, you're just like, oh, is my music that good? And how am I going to get up there? And because it's sharing a piece of you, right? It's becoming vulnerable by getting up and performing in a way, isn't it?
It is, yeah. So not just the performance, but even just sharing music with others. It is, a huge, there's a huge vulnerability factor there. So when I share a song with somebody and it is about recovery, I put it out to my recovery community, and it's nice to receive the validation that my songs have helped them through their struggles. And I hear that stuff all the time. And it's like sharing in a meeting, that's why I go there. I put my problems out to the public and then receive the validation back that I'm not the only one struggling with said problems. And that is a reason to keep going into the rooms when it's like, I'm not as terrible as I thought I was. These things that I'm talking about aren't things that are, specific to me. They're things that other people in my recovery community have struggled with too. And we're all there together. Social anxiety is a huge one for me. So when I started going to meetings, I sat there, quiet as a mouse and would shake when it was time to speak. now it's no problem, because when I go in there, I think about the fact that every single other person in there, give or take, has struggled with the same feelings of social anxiety. And same thing with music. When I put it out there that I had a strained family relationship on a track like "Am I Good Enough?" Well, I know that there's millions of people out there who have struggled with the same things within their family structures. So that's a big benefit of creating recovery-based music to me, is it's like a meeting on a piece of paper. You know what I mean? I put down the same things that I would talk about in a meeting, and then hear back from the same people that I would hear back from at said meeting. So it's it's double-edged creativity for me. It's a good outlet to get these thoughts out in the open, but it's also good for other people to receive that same validation that I've just spoken about.
Yeah, so they don't feel alone, right? Nobody wants to feel alone. And
Yeah.
tell me this, were you always musically inclined since you were younger? Or like, did you grow up playing music? I mean, was this something you always aspired to? Some little boys want to be a fireman or whatever. Did you always want to get into music, and what led you to the music life?
So I've always been a huge fan of music. It started with 80s pop music. My parents actually gave me these two tapes. It was Rock 85 and Rock 86. And they were like um, the hits, the one-hit wonders and stuff like that from those 2 years. And I just used to put those tapes on. They were cassette tapes back in those days. If we have any young listeners out there, they might not know what those are, but that's okay. But I used to just put them on repeat, and I listened to those tapes until they were unlistenable, because you know how you wear out tapes. You don't wear out MP3s these days, but we did wear out our tapes back in the day. And me and my sister actually started doing mock radio shows where we would like introduce the songs and we would record it, and we would do like mock interviews with like fake guests and stuff like that, and read like short stories. And so it actually started as I started as a mock radio personality when I was in my preteens. And when I discovered hip hop, I started writing it right away. I had a friend of mine in my foods class, home economics in junior high school, and we used to write rap songs just for fun, when we probably should have been listening to what the teacher was saying. But and it just it grew from there. Those were the roots of my music, and how I started to create, and it just developed over the years. So writing rhymes just to pass the time in class, developed into writing actual full-length songs with choruses and intros, and not just lyrics, nonsensical lyrics with no structure or anything, but they were actual full songs now. And then I started finding hip hop instrumentals that were original, rather than just like rapping over industry beats with friends at parties. I would be actually looking to create my songs. And then eventually I got into the studio when I moved over to Vancouver, because I'm on like a small island right now, or not relatively large island, small population. I moved over to Vancouver and immersed myself in the hip hop scene there. Started recording in the studio, started getting on some shows in the big city, and eventually went to audio engineering and production school, where I learned how to make my own beats. I learned to engineer my own music, and produced my last record entirely by myself, save for one instrumental that was produced by my late friend Dylan Sterling, may he rest in peace. And it's actually my favorite beat on the entire album, actually. So I made or co-produced 5 of them. 4 were mine. One was co-production with another friend of mine who's currently living in Hawaii. Goes by the name of Dead Giveaway. And then the 6th one, my favorite, was produced by my friend Dylan, who is no longer with us.
Oh. Did he pass away due to drugs and alcohol?
It was definitely related. Yeah, for sure. That's all I'm going to say. But yeah, it was definitely related to addiction.
Yeah, it's so scary. Well, for one, I love the fact that your parents probably had no idea when they were giving you those cassette tapes that, oh my gosh, that's what he's going to end up doing when he's older. That's amazing. I love 80s music, by the way. And I just envisioned you and your sister like sitting there like with your tape, like Mike, and making up shows. That must have been so much fun.
It was, yeah. There's some of my more positive memories from childhood. Is just like the introductions that we used to do. And I had this like, I don't know, book of ghost stories. And for some reason that was like one of the episodes was just me reading the ghost stories out. And I think I possibly wrote a ghost story. And read it out on this radio show. It wouldn't have been a very popular radio show because it was pretty much all over the place. There were ghost stories and mock interviews and then 80s pop music. That was about it. Maybe some sports talk. We were huge hockey fans growing up, and I still am to this day. Yeah, I don't think it would have been the most popular radio show, but the root of creativity for sure. That's definitely something that I can attribute to those radio shows. Is that's where it started from. So yeah, I've always loved music. I used to just dance around. Me and a friend of mine actually did a mock play to Bohemian Rhapsody by Queen. Actually, when I was really young as well, we just listened to the lyrics and then made like a production out of it and then performed it for my mom. This was when I was pretty young. So yeah, that's another thing. I just remembered that actually. And yeah, just, certainly influenced by music from an early age, but I didn't start actually creating it until I was in my teens. And most of my good stuff has come out of having been released since I've just stepped into the recovery community this time around.
And so now here you are, and you're living in a recovery. And how have you been there for all of COVID and everything? Have you been in this recovery house the whole time?
Yep. So I went through Edgewood treatment facility here in Nanaimo from May to September of last year. My arrest happened in April, so I spent just a month in Wilkinson prison before going into treatment. But so I was in treatment from May to September, including their extended care program, which I was in for 2 months, which is like a second stage. I'm allowed to go out a little bit. I was on house arrest for the duration of my stay there, but I could still get permission to be out with staff and things like that. So kind of second stage, where you're not just locked down in the facility. Well, not locked down. They don't actually physically lock you inside because they can't do that. Where I have to remain on the premises. I was allowed to foray out into the community a little bit. And then I went into a third stage house after my 3.5 months in treatment. And I'm now living in a new, bigger third stage house that my personality gels with the house owner and the people who live in the house a lot more than it did in my last one. There was some conflicts a little bit, and so I ended up moving down here. Not to say that there was anything wrong with that place or anything. It was just a clash of personalities. So now I'm in a place called Victory Lodge. It's awesome. It's operated by a guy named Pat, who I really like, and I like the other guys in the house as well. And yeah, it's been going really well. And just coincidentally, I guess it's probably not a coincidence, maybe a coincidence that I'm living here, but it's actually situated right next to the treatment facility that I just went through. So that's a nice reminder. I can pretty much see it from my porch.
Oh, that's nice, isn't it? And staying through that conflict, because I know sometimes when we're living in places where it feels uncomfortable, and unfortunately, because of the disease that we have, it's like we go and we pick up, right? Because it feels so uncomfortable. So cheers to you for making it through and getting to another place and figuring out a way to be like, all right, I can't stay here, but I have to stay on this path. And what am I going to do? So that's amazing. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Yeah, it's huge because I think that staying, you did say it's death, institutions, jail, and having a dear friend pass away is like such a reminder that it's like, okay, why am I here? Why did I get to be the lucky one to get this second chance, really?
For sure. And thinking about that, they're busy. I could have looked at my life before jail and going into the treatment center and been unhappy with every facet of it. And I'm currently just out on bail right now, and I'm awaiting a trial that who knows where that's going to go. And I'm happier than I was without that looming court case in the distance of my life. So that goes to show how strong the recovery community is, because I'm in a more positive place than when that wasn't a prospect in the future. The only thing that was a prospect in the future was the prospect of death, institutions and jails. Well, there's still like a looming court case, but I have things that I'm happy about in my life. I've reforged a relationship with my mother. I've, gotten my job back. I have a day job as well as being a hip hop artist. So I've been working that and excelling at it at a very high level. I have friends in the recovery community. I play, sober, slow pitch softball, which is something that I played on a team when I was a kid, and thought that I'd never do that again. So there are these positive things. There's enough positives that this huge negative that started in my disease, which is my legal battle right now, isn't really that big of a deal because I have all of these positive things. Whereas before, when I didn't have that legal battle, I had nothing to be happy about, and so my life was worse. So that just goes to show it doesn't matter what comes up in our life, and as we walk through recovery, we can deal with it if we have those positive influences in our life, right? I can talk about them in a venue such as this Zoom interview for a positive podcast, or go to a meeting, or call my sponsor or whatever, right? But I didn't have those avenues before because I chose to not have them, and so it didn't matter if there was no legal troubles or anything like that. My life wasn't overly positive. I didn't like the person I saw in the mirror when I woke up. I didn't have slow pitch softball. I wasn't doing well at my job. My relationship with my family was strained. Since repairing all those things, I feel like I can walk through life and face whatever and conquer it with all those positive things in my corner.
Well, it sounds like you've been working a program, right? Because when you work this program, as hard as it is, it's easy. And you get so many rewards from it, just putting a little bit of effort into it. You get into action and you're like, oh my gosh, I no longer regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it. It's like you just described that. Like you're like, it doesn't matter what's coming down the pike. I know today I have this life that's beyond my wildest dreams. Like I have all these like the things that you just like having that relationship with your mom. That's like worth, I mean, all of it is so amazing because they're all things that aren't, it has nothing to do with money, right? It has nothing to do with material. It's all in the heart, right? It's just having a relationship with it, which is kind of like the spirituality that we get from being sober, right?
Absolutely, yeah. So yeah, that working a solid program is key for sure. I in my first year, I worked a full set of steps. I did land an amazing sponsor. Pardon me. I took up a service position in the community, so I'm the group service representative for a noon meeting here in Nanaimo, where I'm currently situated. And all of those things, equate to me working a solid program. Once I got through the 12 steps, I threw my hat back in the ring for sponsoring other people. I help anybody out if they hit me up, via social media, or if they hit me up via text message or give me a call or whatever. I'm always there to listen to them because I know that early in my recovery, all of the people who are out there would have helped me as well. I don't drive because of a legal thing that happened a long time ago, and just being shell-shocked after too many car accidents. Currently, that's changing. I have a driving test scheduled for January, and I'm going to try to take a seat in the driver's seat once again. But all those people that came to the treatment facility and picked me up to take me out to outside meetings, all the people that answered their phone, I give back in that manner as well, right? Other than the driving. That's why I mentioned that. That probably sounded a little bit awkward the way that I threw it in there. But I try to give back as much as possible because I know in turn that the community has given me so much that I have to provide it with myself, because that's the 12th step.
Well, that's what it's all about. I love, and you weren't awkward at all, by the way, about driving.
Yeah.
I totally get it. There's so many people who are, we come in here, we don't come in here because life is so grand, right? We come in here because something happened. And I think we don't want that to be our defining thing about our life, right? It's just like you have this other hurdle and you're like, I'm going to get over it. It might be in January, but it might not. It might be down the road. Who knows? But you're giving back. And that's where the magic happens, right? And thinking, I'm sure that first time, at least for me, when somebody was like, I need a ride. And I'm like, I'll give you a ride. And they were like, what? And you think, oh my gosh, this stranger is going to go out of their way and come and pick me up. They don't even know me.
It was unbelievable to me because when I was in my active use, I was so isolated that I never would have reached out to anyone to help me at all for any reason. I was just, self-will was what governed my life, and I never would have said, well, I can't get to this meeting today, and then surrendered and picked up the phone and phoned somebody, even a friend, let alone a stranger. And now I get into early recovery and I have all these meeting lists, and it's like, okay, why do I have these again? And so I just started calling names off them, and sure enough, it was most people were willing to come either pick me up or go for coffee or whatever it was. And it was amazing, after living in isolated drug use and substance abuse for that many years, to see the benevolence of the community itself, and that's the most welcoming thing, you know, that I can attribute to it, is just how you know, how benevolent it is, and if that doesn't make people keep coming back, then I don't know what would, right?
Exactly, exactly. Now I want to go back to your music really quick. And
Yep.
so you have been doing your music and you're doing it part-time with your regular job, and you have an album out. And if people, I'm going to have some links to your songs, I think, with the podcast so people can hear that. And I have to say, I think that you going out is kind of doing what I do. Like, you putting your music out there is helping people, because no one wants to feel alone, right? Because when we have this disease, we don't think anybody else will get it. Nobody's going to really love me because I'm a piece of you know what. And having that out there, I mean, I just want to say thank you so much for doing that and making yourself, you know, vulnerable. It is truly vulnerable to share that with people, but you're helping. I can hear it in your voice. I can hear how committed you are. It's just amazing. It's amazing.
Thanks, Busy. I really appreciate that. And same back in your direction as well. You know, there needs to be more positive recovery related podcasts like the one that you facilitate here, because this is an avenue not only for people such as myself, artists and, you know, intellectuals and whoever might appear as a guest to, you know, spread our message, but also you know, a stream where listeners who might not, you know where to look for a positive message can also pick that out of the airwaves and off of the you know, the bandwidth, which is the internet, and maybe then in turn relay it to somebody else, right? So there needs to be more outlets like this, because yeah, these are you know, every bit as good as attending a meeting, in my opinion. You know, meetings are great, but recovery podcasts and recovery based art is great as well.
It's amazing, because I think it helps us all be like, oh my God, this person, like, you just went out there and you shared your heart and you shared your soul and what's really going on with you, because we can all relate to that. I mean, even the story of you saying, I asked somebody for a ride. I mean, I know for men, I think it's and now I'm not, you can say I'm generalizing here, but I don't know if I don't know if you're going to, I'll see what you say to this. So when you go to ask somebody to be your sponsor, and you mentioned, I lucked out with like the most amazing sponsor. And I see men, when you're like, oh my gosh, you've got to go ask this guy to be your sponsor. And guys are like, what? Like, this is weird. You know what I mean? Like, going, because asking even for directions is hard for men. So was it hard for you to go to this gentleman that is now like your rock star person in your life? Was it hard when you asked him originally?
Yeah, I mean, the concept for most men of asking a strange man out for coffee is a little bit intimidating. But I'd been going to actually the meeting that I met my sponsor at for quite some time, and I already knew him on a personal level. And I didn't. I looked around for a sponsor a bit. I tested the waters with quite a few that didn't work out. And for whatever reason, not to say anything negative about their character or anything like that, it just wasn't a good fit. And I had known this guy for a while. His shares were good at meetings. He was doing. He had taken up a service position at his meeting, and it actually, for me, it wasn't that big of a deal, just because I had been in that meeting for, you know, quite a few shares of his, and had talked to him quite a bit already. So, but I do understand how intimidating that can be, because that's a very detrimental concept for men in today's day and age, and just going way back as well. Is men aren't supposed to ask for help. You know what I mean? It's not really like that. We all need help sometimes, and there's no problem asking for it. But to be self-sufficient is ideology that you know, not always the best ideology to live by. I don't think so.
Definitely not. So tell me this, do you have a YouTube channel?
I do, yeah. So it's youtube.com/illtonesmusic. So ILLTONE music.com.
Awesome.
Sorry, youtube.com/illtonesmusic, no .com at the end. But yeah, ILLTONEMUSIC.
Okay, and I'm gonna have that link on here as well. And are you on, do you have your music, is it on Spotify and all of that as well?
Yeah, you can search Illtone on Spotify, and there's a little icon on the top right-hand side of the screen that says follow, and you can follow me on there. You'll receive news and updates about upcoming releases, all that jazz. And also on Instagram, instagram.com/illtonesmusic, same handle as YouTube, and facebook.com/illtonesmusic, where I am fairly active these days.
Well, Illtone, it was so nice having you on.
It was nice chatting with you too, Busy.
I really come back. Let us know. I kind of want to hear what happens with the court case. So you're gonna have to reach out to us again and tell us what happened. I think it's gonna be. I think whatever's gonna happen is gonna be. I think it's just gonna be another step for you to go. It's just gonna be me. I just feel it. I don't know. You're doing all this great stuff, and keep it up, because it is, this life is beyond our wildest dreams, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. It's much better than the alternative. That's for sure.
Yeah, I can see it in your eyes, even though we're on a screen. You look really happy, and I love to see that, because, we aren't a glum lot, are we?
We are not. No, there's still music, creativity, friends and family in recovery as well. It's not just, it's not a myth. It does get a lot better, and you just got to take it one day at a time.
Exactly. Oh, with that, we're going to go. But thank you so much. And everybody, until next time, keep getting busy, living sober. Bye-bye.